And then you joined the ABC, and what about your experiences there? Your most favourite film project that you were involved?
Well, the way I joined the ABC was that I'd been freelancing for quite a while. I'd left Channel 7 and then went to a college here in Perth during the time of Whitlam's rise to power, when there was a lot of money for education.
Authorised M. Young, Ainsley Avenue, Canberra, for the Australian Labor Party.
I'd had a bit too much of television for a while, so this was a great opportunity, and I joined a college, Churchlands College, and then subsequently I met a chap who was the project director for the open program at the film school, who came across to Perth to supervise the shooting of a pilot. Television pilot, which I was involved in. I was the camera operator, and I was doing that and was sort of on leave from Churchlands. And he said, yeah, what are you doing over here? Why don't you come over and join me at the film school in Sydney? And I thought, sounds marvellous, so I did. And myself and 3 others, we formed the open program at the film school in the very early days. That was very exciting, setting the benchmark, if you like, for training of. It was great. It was a great time, and I was there for 2.5 years. It became recognised as one of the 3 best film schools in the world, and it was beautiful to be part of it.
I wanna go back to WA, back to WA. That's the only place for me.
Then I came back to Perth at the beginning of Way 79. Which is the 150th celebration for Perth. Number of things. My contract had finished in Sydney, and Dad had passed away that October too. So I came back for his funeral, and that was a passing of a beaut bloke. He was a great influence on me, a pioneer in Perth, way back from the 30s. So I came back to Perth and for the funeral, and then went back and thought, no, I've got to come back to Perth. So I came back to Perth at Christmas Eve on 78. 79 I joined Channel 7 again, just for a short time, and was there doing special projects with Brian Williams, who was in charge of the production department at Channel 7. Brian Williams said, yeah, what are you doing back in town? I said, don't know, my contract's finished at the film school, I'm back in town. He said, come and rejoin me at Channel 7, because he said he was heading up a special projects thing to do, one-off documentaries and that sort of stuff, which was exciting. I knew Brian from way back. We've been mates all our lives. He was originally a director that came in from Sydney, from Melbourne, from the ABC in Melbourne, and joined Channel 7 in the very early days as a gun director. And he and I hit it off very well in the early days. He was then in charge of the production department at Channel 7, at TVW, and so I said, yeah, sounds all right, I'll work with you, mate. I still see Brian quite regularly. We go out to have dinners occasionally, every 3 or 4 times a year, and he's a good mate, a great mate. Brian went on to be the director of the Queensland Film Corporation in Brisbane, and at one stage he was heading the WA Film Council as well. He was also the director of Film Television Studies at Edith Cowan, so he's been around the traps. Anyway, Brian was there, and typical Channel 7, they didn't have the budget to do these projects. We only did a couple, so then I was thrust into the production department, which meant directing the Today Show. They just wanted somebody who was, I suppose, visually literate, to knew what camera positions were and framing and whatever. So that's what I did, and not only was I directing it, but I was switching it at the same time. And there was a Grass Valley desk that they'd installed, big beast with multiple layers of complexity, which was just make your head spin. And at one stage they said the vision switcher director for the news called in about 3 o'clock one afternoon and said that he was crook, he couldn't direct the news. So I was given the instruction book and 2 hours to sit down and try and learn this machine because of the complexity of the weather, for instance. It was just a nightmare. Anyway, the thing to remember is with live television is once you've hit the button, that's history. You then look for your next shot. And that's all I did. I saw absolutely nothing of the bulletin go to air. All I was interested in hearing the cues and getting the news director who was right alongside me to say, right, super. So you hit the super, this, that, and the other. And I saw very little of the bulletin, but I think I didn't make too many mistakes.
What years are we talking about here?
From 79 to about 80, the mid-80s. The Today Show was a lot of fun. Stephanie was a real trooper. She'd be there morning, noon or night, looking absolutely tops, have her hair done every morning at 6 o'clock at her favourite hairdresser, and she'd be there looking like $1 million and unrehearsed. No rehearsals, time for rehearsals or anything. All we knew there was a certain format, opening and closing titles. One there, which was a memorable time, was we got a call. That was another thing. We didn't actually go to air exactly the same time every day. It was a movable feast. So we'd come in there sort of 8:30 and find out we're going to air at 9:47 or something. And it was never actually 30 minutes long. Sometimes it was, but often it wasn't. Anyway, I got a phone call from the manager of the concert hall who had Ravi Shankar, the world's top sitar player and Indian musician, the guy who taught the Beatles, appearing in Perth that night, and the ticket sales were awful. So he was asking whether we'd be able to put Ravi Shankar on live to air in the Today program. And I thought, you beauty, this is an opportunity. So I went to the 6IX studio and got out some record covers of Ravi Shankar, and it gave some background of it so that Stephanie could read them and have something to say, you know, about this bloke. Spoke to the camera operators and the sound guys and the studio floor manager and stuff, and very, very simple. We set a riser in the studio, in the big studio at TVW. We were set up in the corner. The set was in the corner. We had 3 cameras, thank goodness. And we'd been told that his piece would run for about 4 minutes approximately. So we had a cut-off time, knowing when we had to go to the titles, end titles. So we worked back on that, and we actually had a timer on it. And whatever Stephanie was doing, we said, right, cue Ravi Shankar. So she said, look, went through the introduction. We'd set a riser in the studio covered with a piece of old Indian carpet, cross-lit it with 2 spots. Ravi Shankar was in the centre with his sitar. There's a tabla player and another guy, so there's a trio. The sound director had brought out his super duper Neumann mic or whatever, put a bit of echo into it to get the acoustics of the whole studio. And it was absolutely remarkable. And we had coverage of the master and the 2 cutaways cameras, and the one on the right was released back to Stephanie to get her closer. That was the way it was going to work. Well, this sound came out of in the studio of this amazing sitar player, and the hair stood up on their neck, and it was just beautiful. And getting the countdown from Lynn Gray, I think she was the PA, and she was doing the timing. And she said, you know, coming up towards the end, got 30 seconds. And I said to camera 2, I said, you're released, go back to Stephanie for the closer. So finished on this thing, and a very slow pull back, zoom back off the master shot as he finished, and this echo just continued. And then I said, "Cue Stephanie," and Stephanie was gobsmacked. She couldn't believe it. She said, and she's looking to Ravi Shankar, she goes, with her jaw. And I said to the floor manager, "Cue her, cue her, cue her." And she goes to the camera, she says, "I don't know what to say." She said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I don't know what the heck's on for tomorrow, but I do hope you can join us. Thanks for being here. Bye." And that was the end. And it was, we left the studio and congratulated him and thanked him, and we walked upstairs and confronted by this production manager who said, "Who the heck was on there the close of your show?" I said, "It was Ravi Shankar. Did you enjoy it?" "Oh, it's not really what Bob and Betty Balga would like."